Welcome, Cora. Thanks so much for taking the time to be on my podcast. How are you today?
I am great. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's a long time coming. I'm very excited to finally have you. Tell us a little bit about you. I have an international audience. So I always ask, where in the world are you located? And what is one thing about you or your life that people are surprised to hear?
Oh, great. Yeah, I live in a tiny RV community just outside Vancouver, Canada. My husband and I are here on our own right now. We live in what's called a park model trailer, so just a little bit bigger than a tiny house. And I'm a mother of twin boys, identical twin boys. One of them at this moment is in Taiwan teaching English.
Oh, I didn't know that you had twin boys. I knew you had
Yeah.
boys, but I didn't clue off that they were twin boys. That's awesome.
Yeah. They both want to be high school teachers. So we're trying to get into the teaching program and working their way through into that.
That's awesome. We definitely need more good teachers. That's
Yeah.
very, very needed. Awesome. So, we want to talk about releasing emotional baggage and money blocks and fear and anxiety and everything. And I want to ask first, um, how did you discover this? What was your journey to get to the work that you're doing now?
Well, it's been a long road. I mean, ever since I was about 20 years old, I've been, wondering what am I going to be when I grow up? And I keep morphing into doing traditional jobs, but along the way, I've started a personal development journey. And eventually I ended up meeting a lady that does the emotion code. And I did some sessions with her, and I just thought it was super interesting. And then I ended up also getting a life coaching certification. I just thought those kind of two melded together. But I really love the emotion code work because it's very easy, non-invasive. And we have so much stuff that we carry around that happened mostly from when we were kids or even inherited from our parents.
Mhm.
And this process is just an easy way to release that so we can move on.
Yeah, I experienced it once. I just, not from you, full disclosure, and from somebody else. That's kind of how I know kind of what it is, but then I don't really know what it is. Maybe we can get into that a little bit. But what I would be interested in too, do you know the history of it? Do you know how it, who discovered it or why or all this?
Yeah, it was actually developed by Dr. Bradley Nelson. He's out of the US and he was a chiropractor.
Mm-hmm.
And his brother started introducing him to it a little bit, and he started practicing some different techniques on his clients.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where he started the process, and he kind of grew it from there.
Mm.
Developed a whole code. Like I know the people that are on the podcast can't see it, but there is actually a book. I'll show you up for the people on video. You can see the book.
Yeah.
It's called The Emotion Code.
Wow.
People can actually purchase the book,
Mm-hmm.
read it, and learn how to do this process on yourself if you want to.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's got a chart with 60 emotions.
Mm-hmm.
So you develop the process, you use muscle testing to find out what the emotions are for whatever your concerns are, and then you delete them using a magnet.
Mm. Mm. Yeah. It's really interesting. And what when you showed the book and then that card with that people can see on the video. If you don't see
Yeah.
it, check out my website. The video is there. Um, that card with the emotions. What came to my mind is also like I don't know whether you know Dr. Brene Brown, and she just
Mhm.
wrote a book, the Atlas of the Heart, and I bought it, and all these emotions in there. And she, for example, says often we have only language for 3 to 5 emotions, but there's so many more. And you said 60 on this card. I don't think I could name 60, even though I even read
Mhm.
Dr. Brene Brown's book. It's crazy. Well, how was it for you? Did you know, or for yourself before you started, that we have so many emotions? Because I feel like sometimes we have also this baggage because we don't even know that this would be an emotion that we maybe should process and let go.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's always really interested me was watching people that lose weight, because I
Mhm.
would watch these shows like the Biggest Loser kind of shows, and especially the ones where it's a single person over a year. and watch their journey and thing. I was always fascinated by, what's going on inside their head, because it's not about the food, it's about the emotions. And then where are these emotions coming from?
Yeah.
And a lot of it is from when we were kids and our parents said, oh, you got to eat everything on your plate, there's starving kids in Africa or whatever. Or kids teasing you, and then it just sits inside there. Or maybe even from your parents, if they were born through thin times, like in the depression era, you don't want no wasting and all that stuff, so you just feel obligated, and so it carries you through, and you're an adult and you're doing things you don't even know why you're doing them.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where people with a lot of clutter, that's where it's so similar to weight loss. And I had a few other guests on already who talked about weight loss, and I always kind of compare it to with weight loss, because it's literally with clutter. It's also not about the things. It is about the emotions you're not willing to feel, or that you don't even know that there would be emotions to feel, and that's why you have clutter. So it's really
and
interesting.
that's the other area, like, is getting into like negative self-talk,
Exactly.
people in business, not feeling worthy, don't, their self-esteem is low. And
Mhm.
that's sort of a type of self-abuse, which is actually one of the emotions on the chart. And we don't even know where we're coming from. Where's that stuff coming from? And
Yeah.
often stuff that's when you're very young as a child, or even inherited sometimes in the womb.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah. Because I read another book. What is it called again? Mother Hunger. And in there, she said that there is a time period in when you're a fetus in the womb of the mother, that actually the DNA from the grandmother is also still there, and that it all commingles, and that's how we have this man, now I can't say it, generational emotional trauma and all that gets literally transmitted through the womb when we're in yeah. So the emotion code can even help clear those things and release those things. Yeah,
It
that's interesting.
does. Yeah. When you're using the emotion code, and it's an inherited emotion, whether it's one generation back or many, many generations, when you release the emotions, it goes back all the way to whoever started it.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
that's really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. And the natives have a saying that when you heal a trauma, it goes generations back and seven
Mm.
generations forward. I don't really know why. They may know, that must be some ancient wisdom, but that is really, I mean, that is very helpful, because when then you think too, like, if I make sure this gets healed in me, then I at least don't, like you with your children, you don't give it them to them, you know?
Yeah, yeah, you hope so, because when you raise kids, my kids are grown, and you think, man, if I could only go back and do things again, would do it different, but we don't get a second chance.
Yeah, but so see, where I'm coming from, so and that has also to do a little bit with astrology and just in general, my spiritual beliefs is like your soul comes to earth to learn certain things. That doesn't mean we have to be abused or not heal
Mhm.
trauma. And they may come, or not may, they pick you, Cora, as your mother, and they picked all the mistakes you're gonna make on purpose. That's what I believe. And it's hard sometimes, especially if somebody has a very hard childhood. It's hard to say this, but yeah, I think we
Yeah.
pick and we come to heal it, and that's why it's so important to find the modality that works for you, how to heal it. And this emotion code really seems to yeah, be very like you say, it's not invasive. So maybe for somebody who has never heard of it, can you just
Hmm.
a little bit explain what you would do? Is like, do they
Yeah.
need to be prepared? What do they need to do? And
Yeah.
then they're on the call and they're maybe anxious to be on the call with you, which because they
Yeah.
don't
And I do have a video if anyone wants to go to my website
yeah.
that goes through, they can see it,
Oh, we can link that.
CoraNaylor.com.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm. And so what we do is we talk about whatever whatever the issue is. Maybe you've got some anxiety or stress about doing something. And then I will connect to your subconscious. It's all from energy work using muscle testing. So if anyone's not familiar with muscle testing, there's tons of videos and stuff on YouTube to look at that.
Mm-hmm.
I do a method called the ring method, which on the video you can see. You won't be able to see this if you're not, but using the ring fingers and then join them together. And I'll be asking yes or no answer questions. So
Mm-hmm.
if it's a yes answer, they stay tight. And if it's a no, the fingers just slip through. And
Yeah.
that's how I determine which emotions are on the emotion code chart that need to be released. I'll
Mm-hmm.
just ask the question, is it in row A or column A or column B, and then which row, and then I can quickly determine the emotion that's causing that stress. And
Mm-hmm.
then I swipe with a magnet to release it. So it's kind of like when I'm swiping with a magnet, it's like when you delete the magnetic strip on your credit card. So this
Mm-hmm.
actually just deletes it right away. I just do 3 swipes, and that goes over the governing meridian, which runs from the bridge, your nose down your spine. So anywhere along there is the magic spot to release those energies out into the wild and
Mm-hmm.
dissipate them.
Mm-hmm.
And the nice thing is, I don't need to know any backstory of what happened, but
Yeah.
sometimes I can find out what age you were when you actually trapped that emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So, for instance, today I just worked with a lady who was doing a food craving. An emotion came up, said it was around age 8. And I asked her if that rang any bells, and she said it did. She knew exactly what it was, but I didn't need to know what it was about. She didn't
Mm-hmm.
have to tell me.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And so how do they feel something? So when you go with the magnet over them, do they feel something
I'm
when
doing
you do
actually the magnet on myself, which is
that?
interesting. So what I work with mostly people doing it either via video call or a phone call or even email. So we don't have to be together for me to do the
Mm-hmm.
work.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm at your proxy. So I do the work on myself as if I'm you. And
Ah,
sometimes the
okay.
people do feel it though when I'm
Okay.
working on them, because
Yeah.
I'll message them right away and they'll be like, oh wow, I just felt that. So
Yeah.
sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
It's really interesting because I did all kinds of work when I was younger too, where you actually are the placeholder for other people and they work through their trauma, you as a placeholder. And it's so crazy how you actually really feel and you have no idea about their history and you feel certain things that you maybe can't explain because you don't know the history, and still it helps them then also release trauma. I know of energy healing, you don't need to be in the same room. You can, that's the advantage of energy healing. Yeah, it's really
Yeah.
awesome. Also that you can
Yeah.
do it over Zoom or email even.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah. And another one that's really common is money blocks, because we
Yeah.
have so many issues with money and abundance. You know, their parents have told us so many limiting beliefs that get in our head. And if you're in business, that can really hold you back if you have any scarcity,
Yeah.
mindset. So if you can delete that kind of baggage, it just can really help you move forward, because that can be something stopping you from getting where you want to go.
Yeah, and I think we all have somehow money blocks. Even when you think you may not have some, then you're just
Yeah.
blind to them. No, because I think we all have them. It's such a, depending on what your parents were believing, you're just taking those beliefs with you and you think this is the truth, like with a big capital T, even though it might not be.
Yeah. Well, and usually it's not it, but it's our subconscious is always trying to protect us. And
Mm,
our conscious mind, where we think we're making decisions, we're not necessarily, is not necessarily where we're making our decisions. So we're always in that constant trying to move forward, with our subconscious trying to, in a way, hold us back because it's trying to keep us safe.
yeah,
And we're trying
yeah.
to always move forward.
Yeah. And so is there, like, if somebody would come to you now and ask, well, how quick do I notice a change or something? So like just to give some idea, what can they expect? So I'm guessing you're not having an emotion code session and then 5 minutes later you feel transformed, but it could happen, but maybe not. So what is it what
Yeah.
people can reasonably expect to?
Yeah, you know what? It really depends what it is. Like one of the things, like I say, I do food craving for a specific food, and that could be right away.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when it's money blocks or things like that, it might take a few sessions. I liken it to the onion. Every time you
Mm-hmm.
remove a layer, there's another layer.
Yeah.
So sometimes if we take one layer off, that might expose another layer, and then there's more to it. So it really depends. I can't say for sure, but people, you generally will notice even the first time that they just feel lighter because some of those emotions have gone away, because they figure the average adult has about 200 or 300 trapped emotions.
Yeah.
So it can take a while to pick through all that stuff.
Yeah, I can totally see that. Do you have one example of something that you were able to release? Like, you don't have to get into too personal, just as an example and how it works.
One of the things was I'm not a good passenger in a car. That was a thing. Like, I'm used to being the driver, and that was one of the things. Like, being, I guess, losing that control by being letting other people drive. So that was one of the things that I was working on, and I was also working on sleep because I had some sleep issues at the time. We did some stuff, but then I found out by doing more work that it wasn't just emotional. There was some physical stuff going on with that. So
Yeah. Oh, okay.
yeah.
Yeah. So this is really interesting. I was just thinking too when you were talking. With for example, as a passenger in the car, then you might think, oh, I'm anxious as a passenger, but then you go maybe through it, and then underlaying is something completely different, or maybe even something that you didn't know from childhood or something.
Yeah. And
Because
that's where it could come from for sure.
yeah, because I just know that our brain and our subconscious is very protective of us, like just like you said. And if we experience something, sometimes it makes sure we don't remember, just to protect us. But then we're still acting and have these trapped emotions from it, and this could help dig this stuff up and release it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that too, when people have had any kinds of traumas when they were younger, every time they do something, it's the same, often the same emotion comes up multiple times, because what happens is the same emotion can get trapped numerous times. Every time though is a separate event. Yeah. And they get trapped all over your body like little balls of energy. And that's why sometimes you have that crick in your neck that you can't get rid of, or something in your hip. It's actually emotional pain, not necessarily physical, but it comes across feeling like physical pain, but it might be emotion as well.
Yeah, yeah. I have a little ball on my back that I had several people working on already, and it's just there must also be something trapped in there that just doesn't want to be released. At least not so far. Never say never.
Yeah. Well, and you don't know. And that's the thing. It'd be nice if everyone could get some of this emotional baggage released, whichever method you want to choose.
Yeah.
Maybe by the time you got out of high school, if we all got rid of our emotional baggage before we were finished school and had, some financial training or something, life would be so different, instead of waiting till we're almost 60 years old and now getting rid of our stuff.
Yeah, yeah, you could have it as a regular maintenance, even like when you're going to school, maybe, or when you're then switching from grade school to high school, or from high school to college. You could every time you could do it, and as a regular maintenance, like you go to a doctor's checkup or something. That would
It's
I
just
think
like
so
when we
too.
were talking about, clearing out clutter, how in your house, every once in a while you clean out the cupboards, and
Yeah.
this mental clutter, emotional baggage can do that too. And a lot of people do that, where they do periodically come in and get cleaning, get rid of some more baggage.
Yeah, and I can totally see how this emotion code can help with people that do declutter, because oftentimes I come across clients that can't let go of certain things, but they can't really l- logically explain why. They just can't, and it could be trapped emotions. It's for sure all kinds of negative thinking and scarcity thinking, and which comes possibly from trapped emotions. And I think we were saying that before we started the recording, that depending on how your parents grew up too, if they were still growing up during the war, like World War II, for example, or if they grew up like in a with not too much money or something, then all these things can come up, not just with food, because you always need to finish your plate, no? And then later in life, you're becoming overweight because you're always finishing your plate, because some children in Africa, I heard that too, children in Africa are hungry, so you need to eat the food you have, whether you're hungry or not. But it's a little bit similar with clutter too. It's like a lot of people hold on to all this stuff because their parents or grandparents had nothing, and that got transferred down in their belief system and possibly in their emotions, that you never get rid of anything if you have it, that you have to hold on to it. So yeah.
Yeah. Or it can have special meaning to it, but you could also, we can check and see what age you were, what emotions come up and what age you were, and it might come up with something that you didn't even know about, that's the reason that you're hanging on to that thing. And I mean, like I say, and if you have this space and you want to keep it, that's okay, but it's that process to just figure out what you want.
Yeah. So where could people find you if they were now all interested? They would want to find that video on your website and all that?
Yeah, and you can go to my website, CoraNaylor.com. Reach out to me. I also have a menu of all the items that are not, it's not all of them, but a lot of items if you're not sure what the emotion code could be used for, because there are so many things, fears, anxieties, habits, procrastinating, seasonal allergies, many things. So if you want to see what they're about, yeah, go to my website.
Yeah, that would have been my next question, because I saw on your website that one can download the emotion code menu, and I thought it's really cute. So what would you get with the menu? So thank you for answering that question before I even started.
Yes, I am working on getting that actually right on there. So my website right now is a work in process, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Well, that's nothing wrong with it. What was that quote I just read the other day? Humans think they're finished products when they're actually a work in progress all the time. And so not just us humans, but I think everything in our life is a work in progress. That's why I also say decluttering is a journey and it's not an event, because we're constantly evolving, and so is everything around us. So I think my website is for sure also a work in progress, and it shouldn't be finished because things change.
Yes, we're always evolving. And I think that's the thing. We just have to learn from what we've done so we can grow into the next stage, whatever that's going to be.
Exactly.
And it's never too late. Like some people think when they're 60 or something, it's too late, or they're going to be retiring and they're going to do nothing. But, you still have to be growing in some way.
You could still have 30 years in front of you, and you don't want to just sit around for 30 years. You still want to continue evolving, whatever that entails, no? Yeah.
Yes, for sure.
And do you have a favorite social platform if somebody wanted to follow you, maybe on social or connect with you?
Mostly right now on Facebook and a little bit on Instagram. Those are my two right now.
Yeah, I think you have a weekly show or a weekly something.
Yeah. I do once a week a show where I do live demos on there. So yeah, if anybody wants to join me, I'm actually going to be changing up the time. So it's going to be starting on next week. It's going to be Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Pacific.
Okay.
So if you want to catch it live or watch the replay, and that's on my Facebook page, CoraNaylor.com, or on YouTube.
Yeah. Okay. I will link that all in the show notes too,
Awesome.
because that might be a good way for people to get a little bit more of a feel of it, what it is. Like I just know how I am. I always stalk people first a little bit before I actually really reach out.
For sure.
Yeah. So do you have any last words of wisdom or any tips or anything that I didn't ask and you would like to share still with the audience?
All I can say is just, if you feel like, things are holding you back for something, just reach out. And I'd be happy to do a sample session if someone wants to see what it's all about, because it is a little bit different, but it's not scary.
Okay, awesome. Thanks so much, Cora. I'm excited and interested in all these modalities. There's so many different things, and we just have to find the one that we're drawn to. And I think this would work so well together when somebody is decluttering, working with me, for example. They could then work with you too, and just it would speed up the process and make it possibly less emotional taxing, let's say like that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks so much for having me on here. It was great.